Here's the deal. I'm on the move. I thought that I was going to be landlocked when I am not landlocked. So if I sound a little crappy, blame me. Don't blame anybody else. Jack, Aram, Weekend Roundup, and a bunch of other stuff. We're going to do it in a different way on Monday's Just Baseball Show. As always, it is brought to you by our friends at BetMGM. Today, Monday, June 24th. I'm going to run you through the timestamps that we want to get through, like the list of topics and the timestamps that you will see if you're joining us on YouTube or on Spotify. We've got the MLB Weekend Recap. I think we're looking at 15 to 20 minutes for 15 series. And then Orelvis Martinez, if you don't know, you'll know in about 20 minutes. Astros Pitching, Market Clarity, JD Davis, Christopher Sanchez, Max Scherzer, and Marlins Pitching. We had too much to dive into to, I think, spend it all on the series, but people really like the series recap, so we're going to do the series recaps. Cool.
Yeah, with a little bit more pace to him, and I'm sure when Peter's back, he'll have his detailed breakdowns on each of the series for next week's recap. But we wanted to fly through this a little bit quicker because of all the topics that we have. It's actually crazy. It's weird. Some Sundays it's like, oh, we'll see what we got and go from there, and then others it's like, how are we going to fit all this in? So there was a lot of headlines all over the place. So I think that really made it interesting. And then a lot of interleague play and just fun matchups throughout the weekend. So we also wanted to make sure that we talked about those series.
For sure. So we'll go kind of rapid fire. I'll just go. And if you have anything to interject, jump in. I've got, I think, 8 series. One of them was a 2-game stretch, or one of them was a 2-game set between the Dodgers and the Angels. And then you've got 7. So I'll just bang out my 8. Mine were pretty much all American League, and yours were all National League. Ready to go?
Yep.
Let's do it. So I'm going to start here in the American League, and I'll start with Toronto and Cleveland. And Cleveland swept, and I do want to talk about Toronto when it comes to market clarity. But game 1, Cleveland won 7-1 on 7 runs at the bottom of the second inning. Yariel Rodriguez, 5 runs, 4 earned. He walked 3 in an inning and a third. Cookie Carrasco was good. Naylor and Hedges had multi-RBI days. Game 2. Cleveland won 6-3, 2 in the second, 2 in the third. Juan went yard. Wow, look at him. Game 3, 6-5 Cleveland. Juan went yard. Wow, look at him. Second straight day with a homer. They got to Jose Barrios on Saturday. On Sunday, Vladdy homered. Spencer Horwitz had 2 homers. It was like a really weird game when it came to starting pitching. Yusei Kikuchi, Tristan McKenzie combined for 5 innings, 11 hits, and 7 earned runs. Like McKenzie went 3 and walked 4. Kikuchi went 2 and allowed 8 hits. Shout out Angel Martinez for his debut, and that was really that. But the Toronto sweep was brutal, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Minnesota and Oakland, What do
I
you
was just
got?
gonna say I'm looking forward to getting into the Jays a little bit more, but it's interesting, just seeing the Guardians kind of win in different ways now too. Like you mentioned, like the short starters situation, and still being able to win that ball game. Usually, those are not the games that the Guardians have won in the past, right? Like those messy slugfest type of games. And it just seems like this team has different ways to win now. They can slug with you now a little bit, and we know that they can pitch when they've got their guys healthy.
Yeah. All right, let's jump to Minnesota and Oakland. Game 1 went Oakland's way, 6-5, thanks to a Shea Langoliers 2-run homer in the 8th inning off Joan Duran to take the lead, 6-5. Royce Lewis set his 10th homer of the year in his first 16 games. Absolutely insane. Game 2, all Minnesota, 10-2. They out-hit Oakland 16-4. They had a 7-run second against J.P. Sears. This was the Bailey Ober game. Bailey Ober, complete game, 10 Ks, no walks. Only 2 runs came on solo homers from J.J. Bleday and Tyler Soderstrom. Minnesota was 7 for 21 with runners in scoring position. Oakland was 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. So tells you how lopsided that ball game was. Little wrinkle I loved in the Friday game, that Oakland win. Langoliers drove in 3. Soderstrom drove in 3. Like, look at the catchers figuring it out in the lineup at the same time. And game 3 might have been the pitching performance of the year. I know that Ronel Blanco threw a no-hitter, but Pablo Lopez in a 3-0 win, 8 innings, 2 hits, no runs, walked a guy in, I think, the 8th, 14 Ks. 8 shutout lowers his ERA to 5.11. It's been a bad year for Pablo, but this was the outing of the year. I firmly believe that.
And reminder, right, that this guy can freaking pitch, and we know that he can be a little bit streaky in terms of like, he's usually a bit slow out of the gate. I love the statement from him, and man, I mean, it just changes everything, for the Twins if he's throwing like that. So, I love Pablo, so I'm pumped. Hopefully, that's a sign of now that second half Pablo where he really kicks it into gear when he's healthy.
Yeah. White Sox Tigers in Detroit. Game 1 went to the Tigers 2-1. Carson Kelly, Tommy Pham homered. Eric Fetty, 6 innings, a 2-run ball, and the White Sox just didn't really have a shot, which is crazy. Like Jack Flaherty, 5 2/3, 1 run. The season ERA is to 2.92 for Flaherty. Game 2, the White Sox win 5-1. I thought this was going to be a stinker, and this was going to be an offensive barrage for both sides. Not the case at all. Maeda was okay, 3 earned and 4 2/3. Thorpe bounced back. And something I didn't think that I would say is Thorpe scattered walks and had next to nobody hit him hard.
Yes.
6 innings, 2 hits, no runs. He walked 4. He punched out 5. Corey Lee homered. Nicky Lopez a 3-hit day to get the OPS to, I think, 580. And then game 3, Detroit takes care of business 11-2 over the White Sox. Jonathan Cannon, after 8 2/3 innings last time out, 1 inning, 7 hits, 8 runs, 5 earned. Reese Olson had a bounce back that was nice. Colt Keith hit a tank, which was awesome. Riley Green with his 15th. But Thorpe being this good and Cannon being this bad after Thorpe was that bad and Cannon was that good didn't make any sense to me.
Welcome to a young baseball team, man.
Yeah.
And I know that these guys are actually part of, the future. Thorpe, obviously, a little bit more than Cannon, but Cannon's guy that's going to be on that team for a little while. I'd expect in some sort of role. That's the frustration with the young teams, even when you start building towards something better. Like the volatility is pretty crazy. But I was very keyed in. I actually, that was one that I had circled to go watch Drew Thorpe throw, just to see how he would bounce back, see how he would trust his stuff or not after such a rough outing last time out. And I think you could see that Thorpe's just kind of got that confidence on the mound already. And there might still be a little bit of nibbling, but I think overall you can see that he trusts his stuff and he bounced right back. And I think it has to be a really encouraging start for the White Sox and for Thorpe to see from him right after, getting humbled a little bit by the D-backs.
And I will tell you, I'm excited to watch Cannon's next start because Cannon in those 8 2/3, he had a 3-inning save, I think 2 weeks ago that I watched and I was like, this is damn good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can be a damn good multi-inning guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about a starting pitcher. And then he worked into the 9th and he looked awesome. And then he lays an egg like this. So I'm excited to see the bounce back. I don't see any point in shuttling him back to Charlotte like they're doing with Nastrini right now, who for some reason is a tweener. Like you've got Nastrini and Cannon with big league service. Just let them pitch.
I agree.
Please.
I mean, Nastrini just punched out 10 in AAA. Like
I know, like
let him struggle in the bigs. Who cares?
Right,
instead of pitching Jake Woodford, who I know is now actually an Indianapolis Indian. But the point being, like they're rolling some guys out there that aren't a part of the future. Why not just let Nastrini struggle up there and let him learn?
Makes no sense to me. Speaking of struggling, Baltimore got swept for the second time in the Adley Rutschman era. It was June 22. They've been swept now twice. They both came this year, but that's twice that they've been swept since June of 2022. Game 1 went to the Astros in Houston, 14-11. Houston had 3 in the 5th, a 9-run 6th. Baltimore had a 7-run 8th. Gunnar had a multi-homer day, 3-hit day. Adley was 5 for 5. Jose Altuve and Joey Loperfido both had a 3-hit day. Grayson Rodriguez was hit for 7 earned on 9 hits in 5 innings. Didn't think that was going to happen. Jake Bloss, 3 2/3, 2 earned, immediately on the IL. More on that a little bit later. Yep. Game 2 went to Houston, 5-1. Ronel Blanco, 7 innings, 1 earned. Now 8-2 with a 2.34.
He's just legit good, right? He's just.
I think so.
We were at the point where it was like, okay, I want to see him keep doing this. Is this for real? Are we at the point where it's just like, this is for real? Whatever this version of Ronel Blanco is, might be what they can rely on now moving forward.
He's the Mike Tuchman of pitching, I think, where it's like you just have to wave the white flag and say, you know what? Yep, you're good now. Let's
Doesn't make sense the traditional way that I usually look at players and maybe buy into these breakouts. He's not really the traditional breakout. Don't care. it's clearly for real. And
Yes.
also just the way that he's able to like take no hitters into second, third time through the lineup more than other guys in the league right now. Clearly, he's just got hitters really uncomfortable.
Something works. So Rennell now has a 2.34. Corbin Burns, 5 earned in 7 innings. His ERA now sits at 2.35. So Rennell Blanco clears Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
Westberg homered, Jordan homered, Chaz homered twice. Game 3, 8-1 in Houston's favor. Jordan Westberg homered for the second straight day. Bregman and Pena, 2 doubles apiece. Altuve homered. Fromber looked like Fromber. 7 innings, a 1-run ball, only tagged on that Westberg homer. Houston's won 5 in a row and 7 of 9. Wow.
Just like
Forget.
that.
Just
I,
like that.
I will say
Yeah.
they're playing better when they're younger, a little bit more inspired. And I think, replacing Abreu at bats with Will Perfido at bats, even if it's not as direct. I mean, look at what Will Perfido did. Yeah, he might punch, but like slide and grab, hustle double, big spots there. Like I think they needed that shot of youth a little bit more. And I'm glad that they're finally letting, Will Perfido, be that spark plug for them a little bit too. And I know it's probably tough to DFA Abreu, but I think clearly that roster spot is going to better use now.
He wasn't hitting, man. And like notice as soon as he's off the books and you have the clean break, like the vibes. I'm not saying Abreu is bad for the vibes because he's literally really, really good for the vibes, and he's established that over his decade plus of playing in the big leagues. But I don't know. It's just something about flipping that page and
Mm-hmm.
immediately getting on the right mark. Like
Yep.
it was really impressive to see them do that immediately after that.
Yep.
Kansas City and Texas in Arlington. This was a Ranger sweep, and we've been waiting for it. But game 1 went to Texas 6-2. Nathan Eovaldi, 6 innings, 2 earned. Singer, 5 innings, 1 run. Texas had a 5-run sixth. Langford drove in 2, Semien drove in 3. Game 2, Texas blanks Kansas City. KC, no extra base hits, 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. Wyatt Langford with that grand slam to blow it open in the
He's heating
8th.
up.
He is heating up. John Gray, 6 shutout. He got through it, 3 Ks, no walks. Game 3, 4-0 Texas. So if you're counting at home, that's 16-2 that the Royals were outscored by the Texas Rangers. And in the last 2 games, Kansas City cumulatively had 1 extra base hit, and they were 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. Story was Scherzer. We'll talk about him a little bit later on, but Scherzer was really good. 5 innings of 1 hit ball. We'll dive into that in a moment. But Jose Urena was as good. 4 innings as the piggybacker, 1 hit in his own right. They combined for 5 Ks. Urena, 4 innings of 1 hit shutout, ball punched 1. Welcome to like old head baseball, which is kind of funny.
Yep.
Boston and Kansas, or Boston and Cincinnati, pardon. Game 1, Cincinnati's way. Andrew Abbott K'd 10 in 5 2/3. You watch his stuff, you don't think he's going to K10, but all of a sudden he Ks 10. Wong and Duran homered. Candelario homered twice.
Duran is on another planet right now.
Yes, he is.
He is, and he's fun to watch because it's hustle. He can crush baseballs too. He'll hit the tape measure shots. He can just do a little bit of everything. I mean, he's turning into a really, really good piece for the Red Sox, and he's been fun to watch.
Yes, he totally has. Game 2 went to the Red Sox, though. 4-3. Reds won that first one despite the Duran homer. Game 2 went to the Red Sox 4-3. Ellie had a 3-hit day with a homer. Red Sox used 7 arms. Bullpen 4 2/3 shutout. So 7 on Saturday in a win, 8 on Sunday in a win. They win 7-4. Connor Wong homered for the second time on the weekend. Lodolo got kind of roughed up. He walked 4 in 4 2/3. We know if Nick Lodolo is going to get beaten, some of that is going to be him beating himself.
Yeah.
Red Sox used 8 pitchers. From the 4th inning on, a reliever got an inning. Like Zach Kelly was the opener, went 2 2/3. Bernardino got 1 out to finish the 3rd. And then new arm, new arm, new arm, new arm, like all the way through from the 4th to the 9th. Only 1 guy got hit for runs. It was Brad Keller. Why is he still getting shots? I don't understand, really. Like, nothing about the Arsenal is major league caliber, and they're running him out in the bullpen in an inning spurt? Come on. Like, I know you won the game, but Brad Keller's on the roster? Why?
there's certain guys, man. We'll get to another one when we go over to my side of things and we talk about the Angels and Dodgers series. But there's just certain
I had the
guys.
Angels and Dodgers series.
Oh, you have the Angels and Dodgers series? Oh,
Yes.
I wrote that one down. I don't know why I
Cool.
did. Well, I know you're gonna get into a couple arms
Yeah,
there
that's my
too
guy.
that get
That's
endless
my
chances.
Yes, 100%. All right, we'll jump to Tampa and Pittsburgh. Game one went to Tampa 10-3. Josh Lowe homered twice, drove in four. He's healthy, and when Josh Lowe is healthy, he's really freaking good. He's
Yeah.
one of the, I think, not a forgotten player because, nobody was really remembering him. I think he's one of the more underrated players in baseball, Josh Lowe, because there are a lot of baseball fans that are like, who's that corner outfielder in Tampa that's like good that isn't Randy?
He's long been one of my favorites.
I
And
know.
when he gets hot, man, like it's multi-homer games, he's stealing bags, he's doing similar to the Duran point, like he's doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And he's gonna punch a little bit too. That's fine, but I think he's the kind of guy that could also kind of help ignite this Rays offense that has been very inconsistent. But yeah, I'm pumped to see him back and healthy.
Yeah. Game two went to Pittsburgh 4-3. The Pirates won. Zach Eflin, Jared Jones both went seven. Pirates had a 3-run third. Aroldis Chapman got his second save. David Bednar hit the IL before the game on Sunday. So we can talk about that a little bit more when we get to market clarity. Game three, Tampa won the series 3-1. Yandy Diaz homered on the very first pitch of the game, the other way, banged off the foul pole. He and Lowe both had 3-hit days. Reynolds homered for the second time on the weekend. Aaron Savali, 5 innings, 1 run. Paul Skeens, after that first pitch homer allowed to Yandy, 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, 1 walk. The ERA is at 2.14. Last pitch of the game in the seventh was
102.
102 upstairs.
Yeah.
Come on.
And he laughed as he walked off the mound.
That's who he is, man. Like, if you're not, everybody's on the train. But like, just a reminder to like punch your ticket to first class on that train.
Yep.
But I mean, absolutely insane. So Skeens is at 2.14. Colin Holderman allowed 2 in the eighth. Holderman love, that bumped his ERA, 2 runs in an inning, bumped his ERA to 1.3. He's been awesome this year. And he'll probably get save opportunities if Bednar is on the shelf for an extended period of time.
In the Vogelbach deal, right? That was the swap. Holderman.
It was 1-for-1. Holderman for Vogelbach.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Big Charrington W.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Dodgers Angels, the one that we both prepped on. Game one is not the game that we're going to talk about. Went 3-2 the Angels' way. Shohei Ohtani is 2-run homer, the only Dodger production. He had 2 of the 5 hits. Landon Knack went 5 shutout, 2 hits allowed. So Knack was, again, a good space filler, especially with a guy like Walker on the IL and, them dealing with the pitching issues that they have. Pat Sandoval only lasted 2 1/3. He was hurt in the third inning, an elbow strain.
Yeah.
Game two, 7-2 Dodgers. 1 through 6 in the Dodger lineup, 3 hits. 7 through 9 in the Dodger lineup, the thing that's been the problem all year, 6 hits. Tyler Glasnow, 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, no walks, 10 Ks. Glasnow is firming up his Cy Young case.
Yep.
Only earned run was the Ohapi homer. Lux and Ohtani both homered off of, drum roll please, Aram, who is it?
Zach Plesac. Also,
3 1/3. Yes.
I was just gonna go ahead. I want you to walk us through all the arms that threw in that game for the Angels, please.
Oh man, no! If you have that in front of you, I'm in on this. But I've got Plesac's line through his first 2 major league starts this year. After an ERA
I've got the Angels names that pitched, and it's just a really fun group of names that I know you're gonna love. That came out of the pen too.
So Plesac's line, 3 1/3, 7 hits, 6 earned, 1 K. So in 2 starts with the LA Angels, 9 1/3 innings, 11 hits, 9 earned runs, 4 home runs allowed, 2 strikeouts, and 3 walks. And I have to read this from Sam Blum, who writes, he's the Angels reporter for The Athletic. The reports on Reed Detmers haven't been good enough to warrant him being called up, Ron Washington said. His last 2 starts, 13 innings, 4 runs, 12 Ks, 6 walks. Washington said the pitching people don't think he's ready yet. Perhaps the rotation needs change that, but not the case yet. I just wanted to lay that out before you run through the names that came out of the bullpen behind Plesac, but
Yeah.
I wanted to give Plesac stats and then tell you that that report came out and the pitching people haven't told
The
Ron
pitching.
Washington that Reed Detmers is ready yet.
Yeah, yeah, and he's pitching in the PCL and putting up, better numbers then too. Like it's absurd that that's
With
actually a
ABS.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes zero
Insane.
sense. But you also had, so you also had Carson Fulmer come out of the pen. I know he's actually been one of the guys that's been throwing for them
Yeah.
plenty. Hans Kraus also came in relief, and then you had Roansy Contreras also in relief in the same ball game. I mean, I some of them I understand, like giving it a go and just seeing if there's something in there and if you find something in a reliever there. But I mean, the Angels are a team made up of cast-offs right now on the pitching side. Why is Reed Detmers in AAA if that's what you're doing right now? That's the thing that I'll just never understand.
I don't think there's anything to understand. Like, this seems very, very stupid, and I don't know what the reasoning is. I would love to hear the reasoning. And if it is like the pitching people don't think he's right, I'd love to know who the pitching
Yeah,
people are that are saying that he's not right.
yeah. Two Ohtani homers, 450 in that series too, 450
Yeah,
plus.
he's got a little revenge, and it was only a two-game set. So he homered
Yeah,
in both games of that series, and both were 450 plus.
yeah, yeah.
So
And on Sandoval, I'm glad, but we don't know like the full scope, but I'm glad that it's just strained because anytime you see a guy on that throw start shaking their arm, you worry that something snapped, God forbid, or like, something really bad happened. Obviously, it's not good news, but it's better than, bracing for the worst. Whenever I see a guy right on the throw shaking immediately, you start to wonder if something like structurally, was lost there.
yeah, so my only thing, and like I know it's hyper analyzing the word, but strain and sprain are still minor tears. They're tears.
I know,
Like
but
very minor, very, very partial, but like strain, I'm with you. It sounds a lot better than a tear right away. But how many times have we seen strains snowball into tears?
sure, for sure. But my initial thought was he's cooked when I saw him walk off the
Yeah.
mound like that. Like I was very worried. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's one of the more minor strains and we can see him back on the mound sooner rather than later because again, he's one of their few arms that you can really look at and say like, okay, this is one of their guys. Detmers being the other one in AAA.
Yeah. Why not? Right. So that was my side of the bracket. Take us to yours.
You were way more specific than I was. I wasn't even going to
That's
go
fine.
that specific into pitching matchups and stuff. I was just going to talk about some
That's
of the things that stood out in each series. So I'll start with Cardinals Giants. Cardinals sweep, which was honestly a pretty competitive series for a sweep. You got 6-5 in game one. Cardinals win, obviously, 9-4 in game two, and then 5-3 in game three. Sonny Gray was perfect through six and a third. And then I think he gave up a solo shot to Pat Bailey literally right as I put it on TV because I saw that he was perfect through six. Alec Burleson is absolutely raking. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy has been really heating up. And the interesting thing is there's been so many teams that we've talked about just like, oh no, like are they kind of cooked? Like, should they start to look like sellers, blah, blah, blah. But the thing with this expanded playoffs in these situations is, you rattle off a sweep like this, like the Cardinals did, and all of a sudden you're back into the picture a little bit more. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing, as the Cardinals now are a game up from the third spot and comfortably in the second playoff spot there. So all of a sudden the bats are coming alive. And I think they kind of showed that in the series. Again, I didn't see it as much as of an indictment on the Giants as I thought it was actually an impressive performance overall for the Cardinals. But I think you're also seeing Logan Webb not as good away from home, couldn't quite match Sonny Gray in that game three. And
Yeah.
I think they did struggle a little bit to keep runs off the board.
Last 5 weeks, the Cardinals have the best record in the National League. They're 24-13, and they're doing this without year two Jordan Walker. They're doing this with a very, very subdued version of their two superstars in Goldschmidt and Arenado. I mean, Mason Wynn's been killing, and the pitching has been good, man. Like we
Yep.
talked about Michaelis and Sonny, pitching has guided them to 24-13 in their last 37.
And beating Jordan Hicks too. I guess if
Yeah.
there's one team that's going to know how to get to Jordan Hicks, it might be the Cardinals because a lot of the
Probably
same
former employer.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the same guys. But to get to Hicks was impressive too. I would venture to say it was his worst start of the year, the worst I can think of. But 4 innings, 5 earned runs there, only struck out one. That brought his ERA up to 3.24. So that was a big series win sweep for the Cardinals. Padres also huge, huge series win. I know it's early. I know it's June, but I think this is kind of a flex point, I think, for a lot of teams right now as we talk about the clarity. And taking 3 out of 4 from the first place Brewers was massive. First game, they win 7-6. Next game, they win 9-5. And then after that, they win again 6-4. And they almost had a chance at the 4-game sweep, the elusive 4-game sweep, but they drop game 4, 6-2. Jackson Merrill and Jake Cronenworth are killing right now. They also did this without Tatis for half the series, who got hit in the arm. And he stayed in the game for about an inning, and then they decided to take him out, and then we didn't see him after that. But I mean, this is finally some signs of life from the Padres. And again, I thought like last series against the Phillies was more just a tough matchup there, but another tough matchup. They get him at home, and they take 3 out of 4 from, one of the better teams in baseball right now. I think for the Padres, that's got to feel real good for them.
This was a sigh of relief for AJ Preller because he can fully like commit to buying at this point. And each series in the micro is going to like kind of decide how he feels on that given week.
Yep. Yeah. And if you give him a couple more of these beating a first place team, I think we might see him get
we can do this.
A little bit more aggressive. But yeah, to do it without Tatis, I thought was, a big part of it as well. That made it really impressive. I mean, and they're piecing it together on the pitching side. Like Adam Mazur threw 4 2/3, three earned runs, but that's all they needed when they're swinging it, the way that they're swinging it. And overall, I mean, it is a pretty decimated Brewers pitching staff at this point, with some of the guys that they're rolling out there, Colin Ray starting to slow down. They did have to roll out, Carlos Hernandez again, who just doesn't look quite big league ready. But at the same time, I mean, we've seen this Padres team give up a lot of late leads. We've seen them be a frustrating team, not hit guys that they should be hitting. And they took care of business in this series.
Yeah, that was great.
Phillies take 2 out of 3 from the D-backs.
Yes.
And this is just the Phillies doing what they do, right? Where Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez shove. If it's not Sanchez, then it's Ranger Suarez. If it's not Suarez, then Aaron Nola. Like they just are going to be able to punch you in the mouth with a couple really good arms. But also, top to bottom, man, everyone hit. Harper had a 4-hit game in that series. We continue to see Bohm now heat back up again. This is a team that is just kind of hitting from top to bottom. Of course, you have June Schwarber and all that good stuff, but they dropped game 1, 5-4, and then they just shut down the Diamondbacks from there. Held them to 2 runs in game 2 and 3. They won 12-1 in game 2, 4-1 in game 3. And again, that's what happens when, you've got Wheeler and a recently extended Christopher Sanchez, there to be able to back you up. When they're swinging it too, they're really tough to beat. I thought this was another reminder of, hey, this is what the Phillies can do to you. It can get real ugly real quick. I guess the D-backs are glad they got the first one because they didn't really have a chance in games 2 and 3.
Is it Snakes dead? Like, I know it was Snakes alive last year. We're getting close to Snakes dead. I think it's Snakes on life support right now.
Snakes on life support. Merrill Kelly's coming back. We're going to talk about that later as well. But I don't want to judge them too hard on a series like this because it is the Philadelphia Phillies who, I think now are 51-26.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that final culmination for it. Not final, but it's a culmination of all of these things. And this is the recent sample we're working off of.
And I mean, just when you look at the lineup that they're wheeling out there some of these days, I mean, they put up 1 run because I'll just take you through it real quick. Corbin Carroll 0 for 4, Ketel Marte 0 for 3, Jock Peterson 0 for 3, Christian Walker 0 for 2. You just keep going through, like McCarthy's 1 for 3, Grichuk 0 for 3, Suarez 0 for 3, Perdomo 0 for 3. Like, and I'm not saying it's always going to be like that. That's when they ran into Zach Wheeler. But if you don't have a couple of your key guys, and we know Carroll's been struggling, but if Ketel Marte's not having a good game, and Jock Peterson's not having a good game, and Christian Walker's not having a good game, you almost feel like you need divine intervention to score runs otherwise. If you don't have one of those 3 guys in the middle of your order hitting. And I think that's what we can see when you run into a good pitching staff. It's tough because they're also on the other side wheeling out Tommy Henry and Slade Ciccone. And it is really tough right now. So, I mean, they need Kelly back as soon as possible. If they can get some of these other arms back, I'm still a believer. But I think you're clearly seeing when you run into a really good team, they just don't have a chance right now.
No, not in the slightest.
Probably the most competitive. I just think from like 2 of the better teams that talent-wise that are squaring off. Braves and the Yankees squaring off in the Bronx. Braves take 2 out of 3 in New York. I thought that was another really fun statement series from the Braves to show that, hey, we're still pretty damn talented. You get Chris Sale shoving, you get Max Fried shoving. They win the first game 8-1. They drop the second one 8-3, and then they win the third one 3-1. I think you can guess which 2 games where Chris Sale and Max Fried starts. And it was game 1 and game 3. And those were the ones where they were in the driver's seat, keeping the Yankees to just combine 2 runs in those 2 ball games. Austin Riley's raking again, and Jared Kelenic in the leadoff spot, dude. All of a sudden, they've kind of found a spot for him. They're not sheltering him from lefties. They're letting him go. And before hitting a home run in game 3 of the series in the leadoff spot, he's 13 for 35 with 2 home runs and 3 doubles. It's an OPS over 1,000, not including the home run in that leadoff spot. So maybe they found a spot for Kelenic. Maybe he's just hot and it's correlation, not causation, but whatever it is, that is a huge jolt alongside Riley swinging it again, for this Braves team. Yankees won the game they were supposed to, which was the Charlie Morton start. But if you're winning 2 out of 3 and the only loss is the Charlie Morton start against one of the best teams in baseball, I think you got to feel pretty good about that if you're the Atlanta Braves. And, I think I said get right series when we were talking games of the weekend. That's a get right series for you for sure, I think, if you're Atlanta.
So Sale Rodon hit like a certain point in my heart because it was 2 former White Sox studs that were squaring off. Did you see the videos of Rodon in the dugout and the frustrated conversation with the coach?
No.
It looked like he was crying after his outing, like he got killed. I don't know if there was something bigger going on. Like, I don't want to get any deeper into that, but you can't tell me that the last year and a half for Rodon hasn't been the most frustrating time of his life. And I know that like he was struggling to stay on the field in Chicago, but staying on the field and being non-tendered when your arbitration number is getting higher, like that's one thing. It's another thing to be in New York and being a $168 million pitcher and throwing to a 5.1 ERA in pinstripes. Like that's almost harder. And you could say, Jack, you moron, like he's making way more money now. He's fine. Get a grip. These guys so badly want to be elite. And Carlos Rodon was so ridiculously elite that the New York Yankees of all team gave him over $150 million. And like, this has to be driving a dagger into his heart.
It's almost more frustrating when you know what you're capable of now too, and you've seen yourself be one of the best pitchers in the game, as you mentioned. And then, we've seen him do it this year even too, where he has been lights out at points this year. But it just seems to be a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I'm glad you mentioned Rodon there, because that is probably one of the big, aspects of this series. 3 2/3, 11 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks. I mean, I do want to give the Braves credit for that. I think, when you look at the fact that Kelenic all of a sudden hitting lefties well against a lefty, you're going to flip Albies around, who becomes an all-star, versus when he hits from the left side of the plate, I think he's an average regular. Like, it is wild when you flip them around. Murphy starting to swing it better. Laureano's been swinging it all of a sudden pretty well since he's joined the Braves. Funny how that always works. Like, I do think that this is a Braves lineup that he caught at the wrong time, but I do also think that Rodon's obviously fighting through something right now. But again, at least the Yankees got the one that they needed to get, which was Stroman versus Morton. But I think the Braves proved that when they've got one of their horses on the mound, they can beat anybody. And I think that was a great reminder here in this series.
Yeah, we just need Schwellenbach to turn into a horse or something.
Yeah. Or Smith-Shawver to come back. Smith-Shawver can come back and be that guy as well. I'm not
for sure.
I don't know if they're the same Braves that, of other years, but it wouldn't shock me at all if this team starts to make some noise, and especially if they go out and make some of the right moves. Marlins take 2 out of 3 from the Mariners. How about that?
Look at them, man.
Trevor Rogers might be pitching his way out of Miami and into being a decent trade chip. 3.29 ERA over his last 7 starts. The Marlins, for whatever reason, keep pitching Sean Anderson. I don't think they're going to do that again, but guess which game he started here. Marlins won game 1 3-2. They lost game 2 9-0. They won game 3 6-4. Which one do you think Sean Anderson started?
Ooh, this is tough. I'm going to go with number 2.
You got it. Sean Anderson, look, don't want to slander South Florida legend, American Heritage guy, but look at his numbers and his 2 starts with the Marlins, while Max Meyer has his innings protected by throwing innings in AAA. Whatever. But Marlins, they've been playing pretty good ball, relatively speaking. And, they're not a team that I think you're just going to show up like the White Sox and sweep them. I think they're starting to swing it a little bit better, but I do think this is also a reminder that this Mariners offense can just plateau and really make it difficult to win ball games. And I think that's what really stood out to me here. I think there was a day off in one of the games of the series for Julio Rodriguez, but overall, man, like he just has not been hitting for them. They've needed other guys to step up, and they're not always going to be able to do that. And I thought Game 3 was a perfect example of that, where the Mariners did fight and claw back a little bit. They score 4 runs. But if Bryce Miller, like all of their starters don't have the opportunity to struggle. If they struggle, it feels like there's a 10% chance they're going to come back and be able to win that ball game. Bryce Miller got blitzed right out of the gate. Jazz Chisholm put a good swing on the ball. A couple other guys start to put good swings on the ball. And it just feels like a 4-run deficit for the Mariners, even when it's in the first inning and you're facing Kyle Tyler in the Marlins bullpen. It still even felt like it was an insurmountable lead for the Mariners. And I think that's, the tough part. They have one way to win, and it's score early and shove, or shove and get your 1 or 2 runs. And I just don't see that as sustainable. I thought this was another reminder that, hey, this Mariners seems really good, but they're not built for, I think, a World Series title until they kind of figure out how to get this offense more balanced and going.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you laughed at the name Kyle Tyler. Kyle Tyler worked 16 scoreless innings in 2 starts against the Indianapolis Indians. So I don't know. I wouldn't laugh next time.
There's something like a Kyle Tyler too. I just like
it is.
It's an MLB
like
The Show. Like
it's
like an MLB The Show auto-generated name. I will say I've watched him throw a little bit in AAA this year. He's been pretty good. He's a lot better option than Sean Anderson.
He's bald guy at the end of the bench on those throwback teams in 2K13, 2K14. You know what I'm talking about? When it's like they first started putting the 96 Bulls in, and they got about 7 deep, and it was like, all right, these are kind of the only guys that mattered.
Yeah.
So then it's John Smith and Kyle Tyler at the end of the bench. But yeah, man, like now remember, Julio was nowhere close to being an all-star at this point last year. And it was like the 3 weeks before the all-star game that got him there. And after that, it was amazing. And he had that 17-hit stretch in 4 games, and he became Julio again. You can't be a second-half guy every year. If you want to be considered a top 10 player in the game, you have to perform in the first half. And he's been fine, but he hasn't been Julio. And you need to be J-Rod in the first half.
I'm sorry, they lost 6-4. J-Rod's 0 for 5 in the 3 spot can be the difference in a lot of those ball games, especially when you're, facing a Marlins bullpen there that, they rolled out Oscar Brazoban. Nardi's been struggling. Calvin Fauché comes out there. Like there's guys that, you'd hope you could get to and try to close that gap. But again, when you go down 6-0, it's hard to climb out of that hole, especially if you're the Mariners, but you got to be winning those games where it's Bryce Miller versus Kyle Tyler.
Like next, I want to hold him real quick. I want to hold him to the Kyle Tucker standard. Like I want to hold Julio to that standard, like so badly, because I firmly believe that he is that. And we're not there yet. And that's fine because he's 23, but I just don't think we're there yet, given what we've seen the last 2 years in the first half of the season.
Yep. I'm with you. I also should give a shout though. Logan Gilbert, 8 shutty, 92 pitches. He could have easily went CG there if they let him, but it was 9-zip wide.
One of the all-time L's this year is Peter saying that I shouldn't have drafted Logan Gilbert in that starting pitcher draft. He's amazing.
He said that.
Yeah, he was like, oh, that's such a reach. I'm like, no, it's not. He's been awesome.
Brought the ERA down to 2.71, 8 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks. And again, he would have went CG, I think, if it was a close ball game, but it didn't matter. They let a guy with a 7.3 ERA, Bizardo, come in and close it out to preserve their arms. But going over to Colorado, Nats take 2 out of 3 in Colorado. The Nats are pesky for sure, but I will say the Rockies can't close a ball game out. But the Nationals blitz them in game 1, win 11-5. They drop game 2 to the Rockies, lose 8-7. So I guess they did close that one out. And then the Rockies take game 3 in a rare Coors 2-1 game. It was 1-0, I think, up until the very end. And then that's where the Rockies blew it. Nationals came back late and got the win. It's not a series that I think a bunch of people were looking towards. I don't know if this was top of the list of what people were going to on their MLB TV or whatever it may be. But you know what? Anytime there's a game in Coors, clearly it's a lot of fun, and either you get 16 runs or you get some late game magic, which you got in both game 2 and 3. I thought DJ Hers might have a little bit of fun out there. We know the Rockies love their funky lefties, but It wasn't quite as good for Hers in game one. I believe it was when he came out there, but at the end of the day, they pick up the win and take the series 2 out of 3. And they're hanging around a little bit in the wild card. I think that's more of a indictment on everybody else than it is credit to the Nationals, but they take 2 out of 3 and win the series here. Anything to add?
Freeland was sharp off the shelf. Yeah, Freeland was dynamite off the shelf. Kyle Freeland, 6 innings, 1 hit, no runs. He came 4. I don't need him to punch out 10 like Jake Irvin did on the other side, but seeing Freeland back healthy, like there's a reason that guy is a Colorado Rocky and will be for the next 5 years. I don't think he's horrible. Like I really don't
No,
just think it was the hometown discount. I think Kyle Freeland can sling it. He had a really rough start to the year, but like that was a very nice thing to see a healthy Kyle Freeland back on the hill.
100%, especially just because like Rockies fans, they show out, they draw so well, and like they deserve to see more familiar faces out there. So good to see him back out there and being able to throw for them. And yeah, as you said, like really good. I think he had a no-hitter, deep into his start. Was it through 5 or 6? He finished the
I think it
game
was through
six,
5.
6 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks. Again, rare pitchers duel there in Colorado. Also, credit to Mitchell Parker, who again just was solid. I mean, for him as a guy that's not going to get a ton of lifts to pitch at altitude there in game 2 and go 6 innings of 4-run ball. In that ball game, they didn't win it, but I thought gave them a pretty good chance. Cal Quantrill too just continues to get outs out there.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing what Cal is doing.
Can't trade him.
He opposite of Parker there, went 6 innings of 3-run ball, 5 Ks, 1 walk. They got to lock him up. They can't let him leave. They found a rare example of a guy that doesn't have insane stuff that can pitch at cores. Don't let that guy leave Denver after this year. Make sure you hold on to him.
Dude, everybody's moving to Denver. Everybody loves Denver and Nashville. It's okay to live there. It's fine. Does it suck to pitch there? Sure. But if you can survive, Denver's a good place to live, man,
Well,
especially when you're making, a couple $1 million a year.
if they like you, they'll just keep paying you, even when you're not that good anymore. So like, it could be a great place to just hang out. Maybe they'll give you the Charlie Blackmon treatment, and you can have a really nice, long, low leverage career and make a lot of money just playing a really fun game. I think Charlie Blackmon's got it real nice. Last but not least, we got the Mets and the Cubs, who split the first 2 games. And then as we're recording this, it's the end of the first and Sunday Night Baseball is going on. So yeah, we'll see how it finishes. The very obvious thing here is, well, one is that the Mets are, playing good ball, and the Grimace Mets, of course, but how about Shota Imanaga and finally kind of running into the home run issues that we were concerned about, even, if you remember when we put together the scouting report on him and when we were talking about what it may look like for, Shota Imanaga at the big league level, said, hey, I think he's a mid-rotation arm. I think he's going to give you flashes of great stuff, but I am concerned about the long ball. That's exactly what ends up catching up to him there, where he got teed off on. Again, I will say credit to the Mets, who have been swinging it a lot better. And I think credit to JD Martinez in particular, who is absolutely mashing. But Shota Imanaga here, it's not his first time, getting blown up over the last few weeks. And 3 innings, 11 hits, 10 earned, 1 walk, 3 Ks. That brings his ERA up to 2.96, which shows you how good he was before. But just not a great spot for him to be in. Jose Quintana, opposite of that, 6 1/3 shutout, 8 Ks. He brings his ERA down to 6.58. But the Cubs did answer right back in game 2, and they win 8-1. They get to Tyler McGill, who gave up 6 earned runs. And opposite of that, Jameson Taillon, 7 innings, 1 run, 10 Ks. And despite all the underlying stuff, Jameson Taillon brings that ERA down to 2.90. They need him bad. I mean, I don't know where this Cubs team is without Jameson Taillon, to be honest, because they're just scratching, fighting for their lives right now, trying to stay in it. 3 games under 500 as we record this, but a much needed bounce back and a much needed, I think, slowdown of that Mets lineup that really blitzed Imanaga. And it is a bit concerning, I think, given where the Cubs are at right now, and how they need everybody that they've got right now in their pitching staff to help give them a chance to win. This is not the time for Imanaga to start to hit a wall, but I guess you could also say, where would they be if they didn't have Imanaga throwing the way he was before, and keeping them afloat earlier in the year? But I think we're seeing the league adjust to that high carry fastball a little bit more and pressure Imanaga to use those secondaries. And he just hasn't been using them enough this year. And I think we're starting to see, what happens there if he's not locating them.
If you're New York, you're trading JD Martinez as soon as possible, right?
They're looking at a playoff spot, man.
Oh, I forgot the National League stinks.
They should.
They should. I really think they should because this guy is going to make one of the World Series contenders very, very happy in the DH spot. And it was crazy that he was on the open market for that long, but guess who he's repped by? Tyone was a big one. And Tyone and Taiwan Walker signing nearly identical deals last offseason, or I guess two off seasons ago, was something that made my, head spin on both fronts. And I was almost like more convinced that the Taiwan Walker was, going to work out a little bit better than the Taiwan one. They both really struggled last year, but I was like, they were still both really bad deals. The price point for Taiwan this year has made a lot of sense. And I
Yeah.
think Taiwan is transitioning into the stage of his career where he's no longer the former number 2 overall pick. Because what it was Taiwan 2, Machado 3. And I think he was wearing that and he was carrying that baggage for a long time. And he was supposed to be an ace. Now that we're past that, now that Tyone's on the other side of 30, and now that Tyone is seeing a couple starters for the Cubs drop like flies, like Wicks and Brown, two young arms go down, he's like, okay, time for me to be the vet and go 7 today.
Yep.
If 10Ks come, great. I think
Yeah.
he's fully content going 7 innings, a 1-run ball, and punching out 2,
Yeah.
as long as he gives the Chicago Cubs 7 innings with that bullpen. We're seeing the maturation process unfold for Tyone, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it started to happen even in New York, where it was like, okay, I don't need to be that guy, like you said. And if I eat innings and I give my team a good chance to win every time I go out there and chase quality starts, I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna be valuable in the sport. And I think we're seeing that with Tyone. One last little statistic or trend that I wanted to mention: you got to give Grimace credit for sure, but I also think you got to give Francisco Alvarez credit. Since he's returned, the Mets are 8-2. You have to think about who they were rolling out at catcher before. Think about who they're rolling out now in Francisco Alvarez, what he brings to the table in all facets of the game, what he's doing for them at the plate and behind it. I think has been a huge reason why they've started to pick up. But same with JD Martinez, who kind of got the old man stiffness out of the way once he got loose, from the no spring training. And I think we're seeing this guy's always hits. He always hits. Once he got his feet under him, he started to hit, and he's swinging it like one of the better hitters in the game right now.
You would you rather ramp up in St. Lucie or in Syracuse, New York? If you're trying to get the old man stiffness out of the way.
You know the answer to that question.
I know it was damp and sarcasm.
Huh.
All right, that was the weekend wrap up. We went about 45 minutes, so not terrible on that. I think that was good. That was a nice little hybrid there. Not the worst in the slightest. We're going to go through these headlines, but before that, quick break. All right, so I want to come out of this with the story of the weekend, and there was a lot over the weekend. We obviously talked about like all the things that happened on the field, but notable one happened in some clubhouse. I assume Dunedin, maybe Buffalo. Orelvis Martinez, awesome. Just baseball top 100 prospect. Gets up, makes his big league debut. Gets a knock in his big league debut. He plays 1. He's out for 80. He's banned for violating Major League Baseball's substance abuse policy. I want to read his quote because it's a head scratcher. Martinez released a statement of his own via the MLB Players Association. Quote, "For the past 2 years, I've been trying to start a family with my girlfriend. During the offseason, we visited a fertility clinic in the Dominican Republic, and after getting lab work done, we were prescribed a treatment which included a medication called Rejun 50, Rejun. Unfortunately, Rejun 50 contains a banned substance called clomiphene. We wanted to keep this matter private, even within our family, and trusted the doctor who assured us this treatment did not include performance-enhancing drugs. Therefore, I made the mistake of not disclosing this to my team or the MLBPA. With that said, I took full responsibility for my actions and accepted my suspension. I want to apologize to my teammates in both Buffalo and Toronto, the Blue Jays organization, and most importantly, the fans who have supported me during my career. I will learn from this experience and come back to the field in September." Okay. I'm not going to question his fertility abilities, his infertility abilities. He's 22 years old. Trying for a kid, I'm not going to question that. Started when he was 20. I'm not going to question any of this. The one thing that I'm going to question is not disclosing to your team
Yeah.
that you're taking something to enhance fertility. Where do you think the fertility enhancing comes from?
Uh,
I think a
uh,
lot of people understand that that comes from testosterone, no?
is that where it comes from?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, oh, yeah. You know, it's funny because again, like I understand he's a professional athlete and he's been a professional athlete since he's like 16 years old or
17,
17.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I understand that like sometimes like life skills and like logistics sometimes don't come the easiest to guys that like have become professional athletes right away. And sometimes things that you're like, oh, well, why wouldn't you have communicated this or whatever? Like I understand that there's sometimes a lapse there. And that's why these teams have worked really hard to make the acclimation process to, coming to the United States for a lot of players as smooth as possible. And also just the health situation as simple as possible. And that's why they try to offer them all the resources that they could possibly have. I the reason why I struggle to buy that excuse or explanation or whatever you want to call it is with everything that you have seen now. How many times, whether it's a true excuse or not a true excuse, have we seen the, oh, I didn't know this drug had it in there? Like
Yeah.
it's happened so many fucking times now that you can't use that excuse anymore. It's the same way like the GNC thing is, you can't use that excuse anymore. Like, oh, I had no idea. I just took it over the counter. None of those I didn't know what it was excuses work anymore because you can literally just run it by your team doctors who are unbelievably knowledgeable on these things. And
Well,
also,
and okay, unbelievably knowledgeable, but also unbelievably available. Like you
yes.
have no idea how available team doctors and trainers are. You do not need to wait 24 hours for a response. They're paid to be on call for these guys.
And
So
it's
like
kept private. It'll be
I
kept
know.
private too. It's like that thing. Oh, we wanted to keep it to ourselves. Sure, you could do that between you and the doctor, the other doctor. That's it. So that's where I struggle to buy it. And even if that was the reason why, and he really just didn't want to talk to anybody about it, and that was the focus. This has to be like a reminder and an eye-opening, situation here where it's like, okay, I still need to be a professional, and I still need to, think ahead and really look out for my best interests. And it's a learning experience for him one way or another, whether he was taking PEDs to hit bombs, which we know he hits the ball very, very hard. And I think he's doing that,
Yep.
whether he has PEDs or not. He's always done that. But whether he was doing it
Yeah.
for that or actually for fertility, I think it's very clear that you need to be running that by your team doctors. And I am sure that is something that has been communicated to the players from top to bottom of the organization, like by every MLB team. I'm very sure of that. So it's hard to buy that one completely. But it's better than the ringworm explanation still. I'll tell you
It
that.
is. It's a lot better than the ringworm explanation. Pedro Severino, the catcher with the Brewers, you remember that when he got his 80-game suspension? That was an
Yes.
estrogen booster. I think
That was
he's
all the time.
not the only one. Yeah, I think he's not the only one that has taken an estrogen booster, but obviously a testosterone booster is the thing. And like, listen, you're getting something for infertility. More often than not, I'm sure it's something to boost testosterone. And like, again, zero issues with him trying, zero issues with him, you know,
Do what you got to
wanting.
do.
Yeah, do what you got to do. The other thing is, if you were so keen on keeping it private and you're accepting the suspension, why do you make the reasoning public if you're still going to accept the suspension? Why
I
don't
didn't
you
think
just
about
say,
that.
yeah, like why wouldn't you just say, yeah, private matters,
I took it for a personal issue or
a
whatever.
personal issue. Yeah, like why don't you just keep it vague?
I didn't
Part
think
of it,
about
if you're
that.
saying this, part of me like that's the thing that like I feel comfortable calling out because if this was so important to you to keep it private from everybody, including the team doctors, why do you air it out in your public statement?
Through the MLBPA. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good explanation. I had one more thing too that kind of came to me. I was like, oh yeah,
one more loophole. Yeah,
it's no different. Okay, it's no different than like amphetamines are PED suspension. Unless you have
yeah,
ADHD and it's doctor prescribed and you can get an exemption from Major League Baseball. I could just not get that exemption, let's say, and take my Vyvanse, right? And then I get hit with the suspension and say, oh, I forgot that I needed to do that. even if that's the case, and I wasn't taking them to cheat, like I still deserve to be suspended because it's just a clear oversight as an adult that I should be able
Right.
to know what I need to do and protect myself from getting suspended because the rules are very clear and very obvious. It's just that simple. But yeah, unfortunately, now everybody knows, and he suspended 80 games. So that does stink for Orelvis. But hopefully a learning opportunity for him because again, he is young, very young at the end of the day. And a lot of these guys are forced to grow up quick and
Yeah.
are thrown into a professional setting at a very young age.
And we're going to get deeper into the Blue Jay thing here in a moment. But I do want to talk about another thing when it comes to market clarity. We are going to the Astros pitching topic here because the Blue Jays and Orelvis Martinez's absence for the next 80 games and Jake Bloss hitting the shelf of all people, like those feed into my market clarity questions. The Astros pitching note that I wanted to bring up was mentioned Bloss made his major league debut. It was 3 2/3, hit the shelf with shoulder inflammation after that. So they grab a guy who kind of had no business being up and wouldn't have been up if, everything had gone according to plan. And as soon as he comes up, he hits the shelf. And
Yep.
they need to go to somebody else that has no business being up. And I wanted to go back and find this note. 2022, when the Astros won the World Series, they had 8 guys make starts for them. It was, it was the like Verlander, Fromber, Javier, Luis Garcia, Odorizzi made, I think, like 20 starts for them. McCullers made like 12 starts for them.
Did Urquidy
And then
make any for them?
Urquidy, yeah, he was 7. And then I think Hunter Brown was the other guy that made like 2 at the end
Yeah.
because he just got up from and he was like a swing man, and he was good in that 22 stretch. They've run out 9 at this point. It's June 23rd. They ran out 8 all year in 22, and in 24 they've run out 9. Sometimes things go perfectly for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they go the way of the Astros pitching staff in 2024.
Yeah. Unfortunately. And it's interesting though too, because I think you look at that and you say, okay, it's gone as terribly as it possibly could from a pitching perspective. We are going to get some reinforcements back. Hunter Brown's throwing well. We could go make a trade, and we know that they're going out, potentially looking
They
for
want
trades.
2. They want 2 starting pitchers.
I think for them, they got to look for an arm that they can buy low on, or that they think that they can get more out of because they've been so good at being able to kind of unlock a little bit more from arms. And it kind of ties into the Luzardo conversation I wanted to have too, now that he hits the 60-day IL. But I think with the Astros winning 5 in a row now, and is it Garcia that should be back relatively soon? Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think he started a rehab. Yeah.
I mean, that changes a lot having Garcia come back, and the timing of it, like he can kind of just run through the rest of the season. You don't have to worry about, managing his innings as much or anything like that. Very, very interesting there. And then the Blue Jays on the opposite end, losing 6 in a row. Barring some sort of crazy streak over the next few weeks, Sellers, done, call it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're closer to the Angels and the Athletics than they are the Twins and the Orioles, right? Like, I think they got to start to look at potentially scrapping this thing. But the Astros starting to look like, more emboldened, cautious buyers. And I think they can buy with control maybe. And that makes a lot of sense.
So market clarity is done at that point. You think the Blue Jays are sellers now that Orelvis is out and they've, dropped as many as they have, and they're coming off a weekend sweep, and the Astros are willing to be in the market for starting pitching.
I think so. The Blue Jays don't have that much left in the system. You're going to go try to put lipstick on this pig for what?
I don't know.
I'm not saying they have to fully tear it down right now, but I do think that they should just look at trading some of the veteran pieces. And even if they don't want to do the Bichette Vladdy thing yet, that's fine. But sell off some of the expiring pieces and assess. Yeah, assess it this offseason and figure it out from there. Although I would consider moving, one of your key guys, because you could get a haul in this market. But yeah, I think from the clarity standpoint, and as Ken Rosenthal mentioned, it's going to be one of those things at the very last minute for a lot of these teams. But I don't see a team that's 7 games under 500 like the Blue Jays really changing anything. Negative 50 run differential, by the way, as well. I just don't see anything shifting there for them.
No, and if they run it back next year with Ross Atkins and John Schneider, I feel
malpractice
for you. I feel for you in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like that really, really stinks because they have done nothing to convince you that they are the two guys that should be leading this
Yep.
north of the border. A couple more things. Marlins pitching, I want to get into right now because Braxton Garrett hits the shelf. He said himself he doesn't believe that it's season ending, but Jesus Luzardo
Hmm.
just made his way from the 15 to the 60 2 days after he was put on the 15 with a back issue. Do
Hmm.
I have that right? Lower
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
I mean, that zaps the trademark. You
Yep.
teased it, but that sucks for Jesus Luzardo, who is going to make his way to a contender. And I know that he's a South Florida guy, but
Yeah.
at this point, man, like he's on the shelf when we pass this deadline. Like he's off. He's
He's
off
not,
the market.
he's
And
not
he'll
going
be a
anywhere.
Marlin. Like,
He's not going
could he
anywhere.
get dealt this offseason? Sure. But like he on September 25th is going to be a Miami Marlin.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe he gets dealt in the offseason. I don't even think that makes sense. They'll probably now have to wait until, you know, sometime early in the season next year to do it. And the
We get a
irony with
year
this,
and a half instead of 2.5.
yeah, which is tough. So maybe he comes back and finishes the year strong and they make a move in the offseason. It's possible. But, it's not going to be nearly the return that I think that you would have imagined. And now with Braxton Garrett out, another guy with a ton of control and it's thrown really well for the last couple of years. Like I'm looking at this Marlins team and Rogers needs to continue to throw well for him to be a trade piece. But like, that's the kind of guy that is going to bring him a huge haul. No, but I think he can bring you some decent pieces. And that's where a team like the Astros make all the sense in the world. You're getting a guy with control. They just need bodies. And even if Rogers
Yes.
isn't pitching like, the best that we've seen from him, which it's been a while since we've seen that, if he's high threes, low fours, they need that right now in that rotation. So I also think that the Astros see a guy like that, and with the way that they're able to develop, they could go out, make a trade, get him without killing their farm. Marlins probably could get some prospects that they'd like to get back still in that deal, and try to get Rogers right. And even if they fall off a cliff this year and don't win, you got Rogers for next year too. So I think that's a big part of this that makes it really interesting. And I also think that the Marlins might have to consider trading a Ryan Weathers, who I know is on the shelf right now, but it's a finger thing. So he should be back in a week or two or whatever it may be. He's been throwing really well, has a ton of control. And again, the market is now becoming so thin with Luzardo off of it. The White Sox should be trading Crochet because now
Oh,
they set the damn market, dude. Like they can demand a king's ransom. And I think someone's going to do it because the next best option is what? Pitching wise. So I think the Marlins should 100% try to push, maybe they wanted to keep Weathers. Now, knowing that Luzardo's probably going to start the year with you next year, maybe you can more comfortably move a Weathers. And I think Rogers, you can pretty much consider him gone. Trade market just got a little bit weirder, unfortunately, with Luzardo out. But I think the White Sox have to be sitting there and saying, all right, well, now we can demand even more, because before it was, all right, you don't want to give us what we want for Crochet. Well, like, I think if that happens, a team will say, hey, you want this much for Crochet? We'll just go pivot to Luzardo. Now it's, all right, this is what we want. If you're not going to give it to us, go trade for Ryan Weathers or Trevor Rogers or whatever other pitchers, lefties are going to be out there in particular too.
yeah, or like a rental, man. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
hey,
Go
you
get Eric
want
Fetty.
just an arm?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we've got Fetty. Do you want him? Like,
Yeah.
because this is, an insult if you want Crochet. Like, oh, go get Jack Flaherty for half the year. I'm sure that'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Go
that's
rent Jack
fine.
Flaherty. Yeah.
Yeah, just crazy. But no, I love that point. And I will say, I feel so bad for the people, Jesus Luzardo and Braxton Garrett. Part of me transactionally feels bad for Peter Bendix
Yeah.
that he can't kickstart this Marlins fire sale and build it the way he wants to. Like, he kind of got fucked.
Yeah.
Vocationally, he kind of got fucked.
Yeah. No, he definitely did, because now his hands are tied. And that's why I wonder if maybe some guys that they weren't keen on trading, like
Yeah.
a Weathers, that they might end up, being a little bit more comfortable trading.
Or somebody like Jazz, if Jazz is,
If anybody
available.
wants him, absolutely.
Yeah, if somebody wants him, or like maybe some bats, man. Like maybe they didn't want to move off of Jesus Sanchez, but he's kind of swinging it. The other Jesus is kind of swinging it, and
Yeah.
maybe somebody wants Jesus Sanchez at this
Yeah.
point. So like I could see somebody like that, the pendulum swinging over there. Couple more guys, individual highlights, and these are actually all positive. Even though trade market, I feel like is just an inherently negative thing, but. Get ready to learn the Aki way, JD Davis. Get ready to learn Aki way, buddy. Is he still going? That deli. What's it called? Not a deli. In New York. What's bodega? Is that bodega the weird sandwiches made the Aki way? Is that still going in New York?
What is that?
You've never General Aki. It's like, yo, can I get a chopped cheese on a honey bun with flaming hot Cheetos the Aki way? You don't know what I'm
I have
talking about?
no idea what you're talking about.
You're kidding. That was like
No,
all the rage like 6 months ago.
no idea. And I live here.
And the guy in the bodega was like, sure, sure. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Not even remotely.
That's crazy. All right. Well, JD Davis, get ready to learn Steinbrenner, buddy. He was traded to the Yankees for Jordan Groshans. How about that? But
I
JD
Bizarre to
Davis,
me.
like they found a corner infielder to kind of help him out. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, hits the ball hard. Maybe the short porch there could play well. He likes to shoot the gaps. It's a good low cost move there, and I'm surprised that the A's even wanted Groshans in return. But yeah, why not? Why not? I know they play the Mets in like a week. I know he's gonna like homer against the Mets. I can't wait for that. That's gonna be fun.
So does he take ABs away from Ben Rice?
That's a good question. Maybe they platoon him a little bit. Maybe he plays a little bit third if LeMahieu is just continuing to struggle. I also see him as an insurance policy for LeMahieu as well.
Yeah. So that was my wishful thinking. It's like, oh, this is great. He'll just take ABs from LeMahieu. And then I was more realistic and I was like, oh, he's taking ABs from Ben Rice too.
Who had 2 hits the other day too, though.
Kind
So
of stinks,
hopefully,
but
maybe they platoon him with Ben Rice. I think that probably makes the most sense.
yeah. All right, couple more things. Christopher Sanchez gets extended by Philly. My understanding is it is a 4-year, $22.5 million deal. And then there's a club option at 14 and 29 and a club option at 15 and 2030. So this can extend to 6 years and it can net him 30 on the back end, but it is front loaded to the point where it's 4 for 22.5. I'm stunned that we don't see more deals like this. Good for Christopher Sanchez. Good for the Phillies for being very happy with a 5 starter and a guy that can be long out of the bullpen at a fair price point. Like in the perfect world, Painter is up at the end of this year, beginning of next year, probably beginning of next year. In a perfect world, Abel finds it. Abel can help you out. But like, man, Klassen is a pop-up. You have no idea how these pop-ups are going to mature to the major league level. Like, who's to say, oh, Klassen's our 5 for the next 6 years?
No.
You cannot promise that in the slightest. They saw what they had. They're not going the wishful thinking way. And it's like, oh, well, this guy in high A and double A is going to be really good for us. And they found him and was like, let's ID the 5. Let's go with this. But why are the Astros locking up Renel Blanco like this right now? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because it's not like, I mean, I know you have Sanchez for now. He's been doing this for about 175 innings, where you can feel pretty
Yeah.
confident that he's this. And Blanco, it's a little bit less of that. And I think because Blanco is older, and by the time his control is up, he's going to be like 35, I think. So they might be
Right.
good. Like they might just not need to. But I love the approach here because they already have so much money committed in so many different directions. And they know that maybe they might not even be able to keep a Ranger Suarez by the time you look at all of the financial commitments. Lock up a guy that is so high floor. I mean, not only does he throw strikes and just fill up the zone, almost a 60% ground ball rate. That's going to bode really well long term. And I think you can feel, even if he doesn't maintain this high 2 ERA thing, you can feel really good about him, anchoring the end of your rotation, like you said. And, with 7 shutout today, as we're recording this on Sunday, he dropped his ERA on the year to 2.67. Looks like a great, great high floor piece for them.
Yeah. Last thing that we're going to talk about is Max Scherzer here, who made his return. We mentioned 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. He punched 4. But he also tied Greg Maddux on the all-time strikeout list. This guy is over 3,300 strikeouts. An all-time great is back. And I know that he doesn't look the same as when he looked the part of the all-time great, but man, we knew that he was going to be productive at any point. And I know some of the rehabs were tough. It doesn't matter for people like that. It doesn't matter for a Scherzer or a Verlander or a Clayton Kershaw. If they feel okay, they're going to get up to the big leagues and they're going to find that different gear. And this, with the Texas sweep this weekend, should have Chris Young and Bruce Bochy and that entire clubhouse doing backflips. Like, Rangers are back. We don't know for sure, but this has that feeling of like, oh, we're getting to where we thought we could be.
And it could be the first of the reinforcements, right? Like just
Yeah.
we've said just tread water through the first half and you got a shot. I know they've been playing really, poorly through stretches and we've talked about the concern level, but if they can just stay within a few games of the wild card, within a handful of games, even, of a playoff spot, then you slowly get each of your guys back. You're hoping Mahle will come back. Of course, you're hoping DeGrom will come back. Langford coming back to life. You hope that Carter comes back to life. This was the first domino of that. And that could just be enough to galvanize a team too, right? You have that hangover a little bit from the World Series. You start to wonder if you're not going to be able to match what you did last year, but then you get your Hall of Famer back. And yeah, like you said, he doesn't need to be 7 innings to 10 Ks every time out, especially with some of the guys that they've been rolling out there. If he goes out there every 5th day and gives you 5 innings, a 2-run ball, and he's still, he's Mad Max out there. He's a tone setter. He's a leader. And I think that galvanizes a group here. I don't want to put too much stock into that. And I don't want to overemphasize and say get a little too lost in the narrative. But I do believe a guy like Max Scherzer coming back to the clubhouse and being on the mound, even if he's a mid-3s guy. Now, of course, that they need that badly from just a baseball perspective. But I also think that does a lot for the team in the clubhouse. I genuinely do.
Without a doubt. Everything you need is in the episode description. We will be right back tomorrow. I would plug all the links, but you know what? We've already kept you for an hour and 11 minutes. See you guys.